So just before we get into this video, I just want to make a quick clarification. In the editing stage, I realized that this musician's name, F8, might actually be Fate. You know, like, it's your fate. So if it is Fate, I apologize. I was looking at like F8, the key on the computer, but it could also be Fate. So it's either Fate or F8. This has got me covered for both. Enjoy the video. Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named F8 titled Beauty by Design. And if we switch over to here, we got ourselves a track on the screen on Spotify, and we're going to listen through it from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. And before we get into it, I should note that we have F8 as the main artist, Matthew Johnson as a composer / lyricist, and then Devin J. Hancock as the producer. So yeah, let's go, let's do it. I like the sounds of the birds and the foley there. Production's really stellar.
Cast us down in the deep end. Last 3 rounds in the dream tank. Slaves tie you with the intent. Lay back down, let me repent. Beauty by design. Kind to apologies, showing thanks to autonomy. Sympathy, disturb the peace, release all pent up energy.
I like the variety of different ways we're expressing ourselves vocally. I think that's positive as well. There's a lot of modulation on the voice, so the distortion there. It's kind of very kind of edgy and kind of tense sounding, but which is juxtaposed by the beauty of those synth pads there.
Close my eyes. Show me in your mind. Breathe one more time. Beauty by design. Kind to apologies, showing thanks to autonomy. Sympathy, disturb the peace, release all pent up energy. Beauty by design. You know what I'm like. Beauty by design. In the universe, after hours we invest. Let it first break the curse. Scream the words, plead the first. Beauty by design. You know what I'm like. Beauty by design. Beauty by design.
I mean, are we doing all those different various vocal takes? Because like that's solid there. That's not an easy thing to do. I mean, like, it's great. There are some interesting sort of interesting movements there. Like, you've got those kind of early 2010s dubbish kind of sounds there with some really laid back kind of deep dark and kind of solemn, sort of almost kind of like brassy synth leads there with the trappish drums and the bass and then the different vocal styles. It's just so much to take in with that double time kind of like electro house kind of beat that we had in the midpoint. You know, we've got a really interesting track, really interesting. So we'll talk about that more in the conclusion. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named F8 titled Beauty by Design. Now, what do I think this track is about? What I heard, if I'm not mistaken, I had another listen through really quickly. We're talking about bearing our fans to autonomy, you know, beauty by design, you know what I'm like. Are we kind of inferring that it's like the style that we do things vocally and stuff like that? Is it our way of operating and stuff like that? Is that our music that we're trying to embody there? If so, that's kind of dope. I kind of dig it. I think that it's nice to feel confident about your music. The vocal stylings of this track were fantastic. I liked the more sort of laid back, kind of calm, sort of spoken rapish parts there. With the beauty by design, like there was a little bit of auto-tune on that to kind of get it more sort of synthetic to mix with a lot of the elements in the track there. We also had some growled kind of scream components occasionally as well that were pretty hardcore, but they were all kind of tapered into the mix in a way where they weren't too overbearing or sharp, even though you could tell there were some rough edges to them. I think that was kind of dope. We had this overall kind of misty ambience to it with the backing kind of flowing over into the vocals there, and everything was in this big sort of swampy ether, but I still think the vocals had a great presence there, and you kind of had to listen to a little bit more sort of like closer to what was going on there, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We kind of do want to feel like we have to pay close attention to the track, and when you get sucked in like that, you're left in a position where you start being surrounded by everything else. So I think that was really clever. And we also allowed enough time at the start of the track to be able to appreciate the instrumental backing, because the backing in this track to me was just as meaningful as anything going on with the story or with the vocals. When we talk about disturbing the peace and releasing pent-up energy, are we inferring to the way that we write our music as if we're encouraging other people to embody that sort of same methodology like that? But if that's the case, that's cool. I can kind of see how things are interconnected. The track, incidentally, the way it was structured is actually really unique. So we had an instrumental motif that kind of went into a spoken verse part that we repeated, I think, in the last sort of third of it. The reason I say third is we had this kind of initial arrangement consisting of basses, sort of trappish drums there, the synth brashish stuff, some little sequences there, and as well as all the different sparkles and all the different vocal takes. And then we had this build up to sort of the main hook line, and we went into sort of electro house groove there with these oscillating synths going in and out, and it was tremendous. There was a lot of color and pizzazz there. It was great to have a complete different vibe shift. It went from like half time to normal time, and it was just such a great way to segment the track in a way that made it very interesting, almost like we were kind of waiting to show everyone about our energy as we sort of unravel it, you know, and we were showcasing that energy, that potential there in that midsection. Then we come back a little bit, anchor ourselves to that concept of who we are and wanting to sort of like bear our teeth to autonomy and not allow ourselves to just be taken with the tides and everything like that. We're taking control of everything and we're sort of being true to ourselves, etc. And I dig that. Structurally, it was interesting. The main motif, there was variations with the different instrumental layers that didn't allow things to get too dry at any point in time. If I talk about a few of the instruments I really appreciated within this, I thought the drum samples, as well as the way they were structured with the quarters, eighths, and sixteenths there was tremendous. We knew when to have drums and when to sort of take them away. We knew, again, with the normal time kind of groove there with the quarter note accents in that sort of electro house session in the middle, you know, contrasting that with the halftime parts of the slower sort of cymbal, the kicks and sort of clicky bits with the cymbals and everything like that. I think it was tremendous, and they arranged there rhythmically also made it more interesting. We didn't just stick with the same groove the entire time. You know, we had variety there in a way that was meaningful and made sense. But the slower preparation moving into the movement of the middle section there, again being the kind of the big reveal of what we've been working on. You know, the beauty by design part. But the bass lines were fantastic. We had a few different types of basses, from like the more sort of 808-ish sort of low-key stuff happening in the early sections to the full bore kind of bass in the middle of the drop session that was going in and out there. I really finessing those lows and mids. Again, I mentioned earlier in the review that we had a lot of kind of stuff that reminded me of sort of like Skrillex in the 2010s. I know he wasn't the only sort of producer that used stuff like that, but the brand and like we really made the most of our plugins. We had a lot of different synth sounds there. It kind of did sound dubstepish, but we also held true to the hip hop kind of trappish stuff from the late 2010s. We had these up and down sort of ascensions, arpeggio shapes for the synth sequences. We had some other leads as well throughout there. Again, the synth brass also counts as, it's just very kind of like, it's appropriate for the level of intensity for the track. You know, they're a bit more sort of like colorful and less restrained in the drop section. But before it, they kind of came in and out with a slow attack on those synths there, almost to slowly introduce themselves and be kind of like fragrant and then move out. I should also talk about the fact that we had bits of Foley there with like the birds at the start and the people talking in the background and the layering of vocals and stuff like that in the mix. I think was wonderful. We didn't hesitate to allow ourselves to explore having a more immersive experience by having it not just be the instruments the entire time or just the vocals come in straight at the time. The third option is to create sort of like environment, this atmosphere where it is mysterious, and we initiated it by all the use of the different textures and a bit of the kind of the vinyl crackle and stuff that we had at the start there. That allowed us to have 30 seconds where we weren't sort of like confronted by a lack of a hook line or anything like that. We were taken care of as a listener. I'm just checking through the song as I go through. There are also variations, sort of like triplet sort of tom fill parts with the percussion and stuff as well. Again, lots of different synth tones. But what I appreciated about it is all these different sort of main parts, as well as the bits I may have sort of like glossed over, is that we allowed ourselves to really create this sort of theme there where even like it was, again, purposefully colorful in that drop section there, fluttering up and down between octaves and stuff like that with those synth sequences. The bass harmonizing neatly within itself. I think we might have had multiple oscillators within that. But it was like we were trying to sort of capitalize on the strengths of the EDM genre whilst also telling our story in a way that was not too on the nose vocally with the rap and hip hop sort of trappish parts in the beginning. It was like we were trying to have the best of both worlds. And the first half, where it was a bit slower, sounded almost like we were kind of waking up from like a slumber and we were kind of letting the person slowly know what we were going to be doing. And then we get into that part where it's more energetic and more sort of full on. And it really does sound like we're going somewhere where things get very intense and the music sort of overpowers you and you're like, where did this come from? Even though you knew you were building to something, you wouldn't have necessarily expected it because you don't always get style flips like this where you go between them that much. Usually, especially nowadays with music, a lot of musicians being a bit more sort of like, I don't want to do too much crazy stuff. You get people being less experimental, which is a shame. So I appreciate that we tried to do something different here. But overall, I think we stuck to the traditional majors and minors and sort of scale shapes and modes and stuff like that. There might have been some chromatics very occasionally, but we were fairly conservative in that regard in a way that was not detrimental to the listening experience. There, we understand our fundamentals of music theory and composition as well as songwriting. And it's just the studio recording, mixing and mastering. The performance is tight. The vocals were kind of quiet in the mix sometimes, but I think again now is to encourage us to listen closely, and we leveled appropriately where we needed to. The Foley parts were quiet there. Some of the scream parts were quiet as well. I suppose we just wanted them to be sort of like maybe back of the thought kind of things there. But we clearly knew how to level the synths, the bass, the drums, the pads, and the sequences, and everything else. Things were nice and wide in the stereo field. Things kind of went to the side, and there was a bit of automation of stuff that went from the center to the right. For example, in the beginning there, different things were panned around the stereo field as well, very immersive. There was dynamic range, things were not the same loudness all the time, and it was nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression and limiting were handled. I mean, effectively, this is my review of this track from an actor named F8, titled Beauty by Design, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show us the love out the various social medias and the Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need to help more than ever. Thought of crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.